Hello, welcome to my channel. I am Puddles, and today we're doing some more encounter building. This is part 12. We're going to talk about conditions. We're just going to go through a list of conditions, talk about how we can use them in our combat, sometimes what they do. Basically, this is for newer DMs who haven't really thought about incorporating different conditions into their combat. And it should be nice, quick, sweet, and easy to go through. So first, blinded. So when you're blinded, you have disadvantage on attacks and things have advantage against you. How can we incorporate this into our combats? There's a darkness spell, which you magically enshroud players in magical darkness so they can't see. You can use the blindness spell. So there are spells that you can do it. Or mechanically, if the players rely on light to see, and they're using torches or like a light spell, you can just blow the torches out or cast a spell magic on the light spell. So you can just take away their reliance on light so that they are in the dark. You could also alternatively get some bandits to, as they are sneaking up and attacking, like put bags over the players' heads so that they're blinded in the initial combat. You could do like a dex check versus strength or something like that to figure it out in terms of getting the bag on the head. But yeah, there are many different ways to make a player blinded. Charmed. Usually there are only two ways to charm your players. One, you can cast spells that charm players to different degrees. And then there are creatures who have a charming influence over creatures. Over your players. What you do when they're charmed, though, you can make them do anything. You can make them dance on the spot. You can make your players attack each other, which is always fun. Yeah, but just remember it can get sometimes frustrating for players. With conditions, I will just say before I continue, some conditions are very frustrating for players. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to like soften your blows or anything against your players, but just remember, you know, some things are not so fun. Not that they need to be avoided, but yeah. Deafened. You can cast the deafen spell. I think loud noises in enclosed spaces should probably also deafen players. So if they're shooting off a gun in a tiny little space, maybe you could deafen them for one round as their ears are ringing. Things like that. Loud spells like the Thunder Wave or Shatter should also do that. There could be creatures that are so loud that they deafen your players for a round. And there's the silence spell as well. Which you can use. Frightened. There are spells like Fear that can frighten your players. There are creatures like dragons who have frightful presence. You could just have someone so like scary that he frightens people. You could give like an NPC a frightful presence sort of stuff. You can definitely homebrew around these things. And there are like different classes that have ways of frightening creatures and stuff. Just with frightened at higher levels, it becomes more prevalent, and higher level characters will understand how to deal with it. The first time your players get frightened, they're probably not going to know what's going on and how to deal with it. But that's fine. Grappled. Grappled. So many times you will be in a game with a new player and they will go to grapple somebody. And then when you attack them with the creature that they are grappling, they are going to be like, what the fuck is going on? He's grappled. And yeah, that's how grapple works. You just reduce their movement. You're not restraining them. You're just holding them in place. And while you're holding them in place, they can stab you in the face. Often players will say it's broken, and not many people like to grapple because it doesn't really do anything. In terms of combat, it's really good for stopping people from running away. It's if you know someone is running away and they like you know that you probably can't kill them or knock them out, you could just grapple them and your friends can kill them or knock them out. So it's also good. One thing as well is if there is a creature flying and you can't attack it, you can hold your action to grapple it when it comes down within range of you. So there are times when grapple can be used like really well. Incapacitated, we won't really go through that. It's just when you can't do anything. Invisible. Yeah, spells make you invisible, potions make you invisible. There are some creatures that are invisible. Basically, you can't be seen. You get advantage on things. It's not as powerful as people think it is. It gives you like advantage on stealth and things like that. Yeah, invisibility, it's good to have in some combats, especially if the players go into a fight thinking that they have the advantage and then a couple of invisible creatures just pop up. Yeah, that's fun. I like that. I like using invisibility in combat. It's pretty fun for that. Paralyzed. Yeah, so they are incapacitated. See above, the one that I skipped. Yeah, so poisons can paralyze. You can do... you could have like massive damage paralyzing your players. You could say, in my campaign, anybody who takes over 50 damage in one round has to make a Constitution saving throw or they're paralyzed. But you could also mix that with stunned. Like paralyzed and stunned are very similar in ways. Paralyzed, but like paralyzed is for a longer time. Yeah, it's usually just poisons and things like that that use paralyze. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head about it. Petrified. So there are some creatures that petrify. Petrified is basically turned to stone. So it can be very dangerous. If you're fighting a Medusa or some Basilisk or Cockatrice, yeah, it can get deadly. So just keep that in mind. It is pretty fun though. What else should we think about? There are spells that can turn people to stone, and there's potions. So you could trick someone into drinking a potion that turns them to stone. But just remember, when they are a statue and their arm gets shattered off, it is gone. They lose their arm. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Especially when you put your players up against 10 Cockatrice and all of them turn into stone and they all die. Poisoned. Basically, you can ingest poison, or you can get stabbed with little spider mandibles and get injected with poison. I suppose there are spells that do create the poison effect. I think. Hope I'm not just saying stuff and pulling it out of my bum here. But prone. This is one that I wanted to talk about. Doesn't really seem that that useful or interesting, especially because like most of the time prone is when someone falls over or they have been knocked unconscious and then they get healed and they are prone. They lose half their movement. But one thing people don't think about enough, I think, is the attack rolls have disadvantage as long as it's not within 5 feet. So if there is a creature, so basically if you're an archer and you know that you are not going to be moving from where you are, you would always go prone at the end of your turn, because as long as you're not running away, you just use your 15 movement to get up, shoot, go down again, and then you have anyone who attacks you has disadvantage. It's something that I don't think people use a lot in combat, and it's something that I think I'm probably going to use a lot more with bandits and things like that who are hiding in the trees, as long as they know that there's nobody who's going to be running up to them straight away. Yeah, and even for players, if someone's like getting peppered with arrows as they're trying to run away, it would make more sense to like do the dash action, and at the end of that dash action go prone, because then you've moved your 60 feet. Then as people are coming towards you, you'll get up from prone and move another 45, because then all of the, like, obviously if someone is chasing you, that's a bad idea, but if they're only shooting at you, it would make sense to go prone at the end of your turn, because then they have less chance of hitting you. Just a little thing that I think a lot of people don't normally think about. Restrain. So this is the one that people think grapple is normally. It is usually spells, or if like you have been grappled and then a creature swallows you, then you're restrained. Things like that. Apart from, like, I think if grapple was restrained, it would be way too strong, because then everyone would just grapple all the time. I think it's good that you can't just restrain a creature immediately. Obviously you can tie them up, but that's not really a thing that you're going to do in combat. So it doesn't have as many combat uses unless it comes to spells and creatures that have the ability to do so. But if it was otherwise, I think it would be way too strong. Stunned. Usually it's like for 1 round you just can't do anything. So it's good. Some creatures have abilities that can stun, like the haste spell, you are stunned for 1 round after it. Monks are really good at stunning. Just be careful that in a combat, if you have a creature that's stunned or you homebrew something, players, like in a combat, you as a DM, you're controlling like lots of moving parts. Players are sitting there waiting for their turn, and if you just like stun them every time, every round, it would get very frustrating for them. Again, not that you shouldn't do that, but you should also be aware of whether it's fun for the players. Unconscious, pretty straightforward. We won't talk about unconscious. Exhaustion. This isn't really an in-combat thing. I suppose you could create creatures that like suck the energy from somebody and make them exhausted, but I would be very careful in doing that, because exhaustion is frustrating in the way that it takes a very, very long time to remove it. Like one long rest removes 1 level of exhaustion, so just be careful with that when you're playing with that in your games. But yeah, it's good for out of combat stuff. But yeah, that is the conditions. I hope this has been interesting and useful. If you have any questions, just let me know, and thanks.